Okay, we are live. It is April 23rd. Unbelievable. It's spring is here and it was a short winter with a few days of summer and then back to some freezing and then thunderstorms and but golf is up. The Masters was a great show and lots going on but we have a great guest today and we'll talk about high tech and many other things. But before we get rolling, let's have our own John Sibley Butler play some music.
This old guitar taught me to sing a love song, showed me how to laugh and how to cry. It introduced me to some friends, gave me good days, helped me through some lonely, cold, lonely nights. Oh yes, what a good God, good guitar to have on the cold, lonely night.
Woo! Well done, Johnny.
Love it.
So John Butler, the world keeps changing pretty fast. Today was an interesting day in Wall Street. Yesterday was an epic day in Wall Street. The stock went through the roof like crazy. Today is no different, but yesterday was a huge day. And I think people are starting to see the impact of the tariffs and what's going on. And I tell you that the grid is behaving nice today, and we have about 11,000 megawatts on reserves, and the economy seems to be, reshifting. So what say you?
Well, I think we got to keep in mind that we have the real economy of goods and service and the money economy of credit and money. And the stock market represents the latter. That is, it's a gamble on how companies will do. But the other one, the movement of goods and services among people and how people are doing themselves, is the real economy of goods and services. So as the stock market soars, we must keep in mind that that people will always find a way to beat the system. And the stock market is very, very out there. Everybody can see it. But we still have to pay attention to the goods and services. That is, how goods and services are produced, what happens to the supply chain. And when the supply chain is back, well, it means that people can spend more, can buy the things they wanted to do. And so the problem that we have, however, are jobs for the future. What's going on as America, as a benevolent society. So I can say this when I tell my MBA students in my entrepreneurship and technology class to go get wealthy and to go get rich, you can't say that to a country. A country is a big 501c that cannot be done on the basis of mathematical balances that we have in the business world. And that is, we can't fire 350,000 people and say that the stock of America would go up because America is not on the stock market, right? So I think the problem that we have and that we're having now is the perception of jobs and opportunities in the future for American or the real economy of goods and services. Because remember, Andreas, for those of people who are not on the stock market, the most important thing is the revenue that they bring on from their jobs, right? So I think that we'll continue to do, but this is change. America has always met the challenge with change, and let's be very, very clear. China presents a wonderful, wonderful challenge. That is, when we first had a development with China, it was okay, go over and make our goods and services and ship them back. We're going to give you our IP, but we're not going to give it to you. We still own it. And then China said we're going to make our own IP, and they are now the manufacturing place for the entire world, and that is a fact. The economy is growing twice as fast as ours, and that is a fact. They're looking at different kinds of places for their technology and all of their services and all their products, and that is a fact. So if you look what's happening, it's a lot of change in the Western world, but I would still bet on America. I bet on America because of the freedom, the whole idea that I can come here, and I don't see anybody running away from America. I could come here, get off an airplane, and create my own enterprise, and people will celebrate me. I don't think we can do that in other places. The other thing we have is the military. I think is that if you look at what has happened, and let's call it a change in, you have the benevolence on one side, and then you got the reality, like an old soldier like me on the other side. If you look at the buildup of China as a military kind of country, it's very interesting to me. Remember, this is a country that's 5,000 years old, and the Chinese will tell you, as I taught in China at the university over there, hey, America's only 230 years old. We're babies. 260 years old, you're a baby. China has been around for over 5,000 years. And by the way, China also sailed around the globe, but decided not to go and to have a policy of taking over lands. So I think it's an interesting thing that's happening. And let me tell you, Andreas, it is happening. It is happening in intellectual circles. And finally, America represented the gathering of the best intellectuals in the whole world. The best intellectuals from from Africa, from China, from Europe came to America to study.
Right.
It was the best collection of intellectuals forever, right? And I think that's being threatened now. I think that, and to say that, what I mean is being threatened, and let's be fair, they came because universities charge 3 times the amount of tuition for foreign students that we'll do, all right, for Americans. But the fact of the situation is when it comes to science and technology, and America is great because of science and technology, it was the best assembly, if you will, of minds in the entire world. This is where you came. You went to the University of Arizona. You went to Utah State, right? You went to the University of Wisconsin, right? You went to Princeton University where Einstein had his office, right? And I think that's being challenged. And as a former university professor, then I think that's pretty wild. But so that's my world now. I've enjoyed reading Llewellyn King's comments on what's going on. It's still the best that I read, besides mine, of course. When it comes to trying to figure out what's going on in the world, his penning and the thoughts that come out of his mind on different kind of issues, whether it's petroleum, whether it's immigration, they have a historical tint to them. They're not from somebody who was born in 1990 or 2000. He brings an international kind of flavor to his writing that's very, very refreshing.
Absolutely.
John, you must be worried about how I'm going to attack your argument and demolish it.
Yes, well, I'm worried about you getting and
stepping
stepping on my reputation and you just putting me by the wayside, but I'll accept it.
All right. You and I are different. I see the U.S. as being on a yo-yo, being bounced up and down daily, as reflected in the stock market. Andres praises the rise in the stock market. We didn't hear him say what he thought when it was falling through the floor, with a speed of deceleration equal to that in 1932. We have a bunch of incoherence running the country without any solid policy, any certain idea, and nobody seems to have taken any backward glance at history whatsoever. We have forgotten what happened with Smoot-Hawley and tariffs, that tariffs have never worked, that the globe has been moving to a tariff-less situation, and we come and produce this rather ancient concept of putting a wall around the country so that inefficient industries can prosper, and that people will come in here and bring their money for $5 million. You can get citizenship. This is preposterous. This is not how you run a great nation. We lack intellectual depth. We lack commitment in government. We have slogans dominating, and the latest is Steve Bannon has suggested that Trump may have to suspend habeas corpus, the fundamental of all common law. These are preposterous suggestions. We are diminishing our ability. I agree wholeheartedly with with my colleague, John, that this is a country of research and development, of technological leadership. But what is happening? Research is being cut in medicine, in pure science, across the board. The universities are being diminished. The great research universities are being undermined by this administration. How in this chaos can we expect to dominate in the world, or even to retain the revered position which we have achieved in the world as leaders in civil rights, human concepts, research, science, medicine? Why is America that has been the Reagan's shining city on a hill? We're trying to get it off the hill as fast as we can. This is a terrible moment in American history, and do not deceive yourself otherwise, because you are going to be sadly disillusioned when this lunacy comes to an end and we find ourselves not the leader of the world, but just another country in it, and that China, particularly Russia possibly, and other lesser nations have occupied the high ground, which was once ours by right and entitlement, through leadership, through thought, and through moral stature.
I am so glad that you're telling us how you feel, Llewellyn.
I'm telling you how the nation is beginning to feel as it observes the huge mistake it has made. Nations do make mistakes. Britain made a massive mistake with Brexit, and I fear going down, I'm not saying going down with this president, I'm not going that far, but I'm saying this idiocy of tariffs. 30% of the Chinese goods that were due to land are not landing. We have no regular supply of precious metals, rare earths, except from China. If they cut them off, our entire technological world comes to a halt. I mean, it's not a joke. It's not something that you're going to reinvent overnight. All the rare earths on Earth, which we use in everything from the cell phone to the multiplier effect in windmills, about somewhere between 5 and 10% multiplier effect, five-fold multiplier effect. Our electric cars will not run. We will not be able to make them. We'll have to, we're in a very precarious position, and we're behaving in a very foolish way, in my view.
Anyways,
But
thank you.
somebody once
Llewellyn.
said, why the hell is world is going to hell, I'm moving to Texas.
Texas will not be saved, and you're running out of water.
I think we're gonna be fine. But let me
whatsoever. The rot has set in. The rot is here. It's not coming. It's here. It's arrived. We're in a bad shape and getting worse. And this happy talk is just deceptive.
I bet on Texas every time.
let me introduce our guest, who is probably wondering why she's in the show today. We are delighted to have our friend Emily Gupton, who is the Chief Technology Officer at SKG in Austin. She's also now the newly minted Chief Technology Officer at FOLIO. I hope I got that right. Emily is heavily involved in the tech community in Austin, and I would love to hear her thoughts or feedback on how any of these changes, if at all, are impacting what's going on. She's also obviously an Austin Women in Technology leader, and she's a successful entrepreneur, growing companies, and she was accepted being our MC of our annual conference last September, where she did a fabulous job, and I would hire her again, and I'm in a heartbeat. So Emily, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for that intro.
How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to be here. And to
Tell us what's the latest with SKG and FOLIO.
Yeah, so FOLIO is a digital B2B platform. We service commercial furniture dealers and architecture and design firms across the country. And we help those teams align on budget and aesthetic with their clients, whether that's in a corporate office, hospital, higher education facility. And so we've got our platform out there hanging out. doing well, and we're kind of stable. And then over in the SKG space, so we provide commercial interior solutions. So we can do everything from design the inside of your space, all the furniture, fixtures, equipment, architectural solutions, technology solutions, whether you're in government, higher ed, healthcare, any vertical market we can support. And so with everything that's happening today, I would say that SKG is definitely more impacted than the FOLIO camp. We can procure from 350 manufacturers for our clients, and all of those have different places that they get their bits and bobs and where they manufacture and ship from. And so monitoring that on behalf of our clients and communicating that to them, and then understanding that for our teams has been interesting. We've got a good system in place. We monitor as much as we can daily, but the volatility of that and the information just coming out all the time is challenging.
And you are also, you told me you just recently moved to new digs downtown. And in the background that I see is not a fake background. It's not an AI. It's actually your office.
It is. It is. Some people joke and tell me I should have like little goggles and a snorkel on because it kind of looks like a fish tank with the glass and the blue.
It's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. We have to come say hello at some
Anytime.
point. Absolutely. So tell me, so you're always out there leading Austin in the growth and networking. And do you see what's your take on what's happening? Business as usual, business moving up, business shrinking? What's the feeling?
Oh gosh. I think that it kind of depends on the market segment that we're talking about. I think if we're through Austin Women in Technology, we've got a lot of connections to the recruiting firms and people that are job seeking, and that as an outside observer of just like watching that ecosystem within AWT is very challenging right now. There are a lot of people that are looking for jobs, especially in the technology space, related to probably more like coding development positions, as people try to understand the how AI is going to support their business and maybe allow them to lay off people or not have to hire as many people because AI is going to support that. And so that has been really challenging to observe as somebody who like loves humans and want the best for everybody to succeed in life. And the job market is really challenging in that regard right now.
Okay. Johnny?
Emily, I couldn't wait to get you on here so to ask this question.
Oh gosh.
As a person who have studied management, which is the combination of economic psychology and sociology theoretically, everything is on a platform now. My gosh, everything sits on a platform.
Sure.
And as a scholar of people who do business, which is kind of socio business or socio psychological economic business, how do I study your firm now? Why it sits on a platform?
How do you study what?
Your firm that sits on a platform. Isn't that amazing? But before, I would walk into a firm, I would talk to the people, I would interview the people. Now you sit on a platform, Austin sits on a platform, Dallas sits on a platform. So how do you see yourself as a platform, which has been around for years now, as a platform enterprise? How do you manage a platform enterprise?
Are we talking about the FOLIO bucket?
Yeah, I want the real bucket with the people that you hire. How did you hire? Did you go to Indeed? Did you never shake their hand? What do you do?
Sure. Okay. So like recruiting the human being.
Yes. Yeah. Human beings are still important in business, although they might be becoming less so. But in other words, if I were to farm, let's say if I went to study Whole Foods 30 years ago, I would walk in, I would talk to John Mackey, I would ask him how he recruited, which people did, or if somebody was doing a Harvard business case on your company, on the furniture company. How would they go about it by creating a case? Now you have an MBA. How would you create a case on your company now since it sits on a platform?
Gosh, I could answer that a lot of different ways. I mean,
from your point of view, yes.
What's that?
Yes, from your point of view.
If I think about like our SKG team, meeting companies where they are who need interior solutions. Like we were having a conversation today about HubSpot now has their AI inside of their tool that can tell you all the things you need to know about the firm or about the person. So I think there's a lens of leveraging the technology that's available to assess those things and help you learn more and make a decision. But what that's not going to do is tell you that like human to human interaction of like, what are you trying to exude? Whether if I'm thinking about SKG and how we serve our clients, what do you want to exude as your culture in your space? Like when we're interfacing with our clients, how do you want people to show up every day and feel when they come to work if they're coming to the office? If I think about the recruitment side and people live on a platform now, right? Like you could find out an unbelievable amount of information about me on my LinkedIn, on my website, through work postings or whatever that looks like, and can glean a lot, right? But then still having that human-centric aspect to me is super important because that also tells me a lot about you, about how you show up, about how you interact and could fit in. And if I think about the hiring lens, how you fit in with the culture and the people that we want to be part of our company, whether that's SKG or anybody.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. Let me give you a case real fast here. So John Butler, professor, had office hours. Office hours, kids were just strung all down the hallway waiting to see me. John Butler has office hours today. Nobody comes to my office hours. They're not interested in meeting me. Dear Professor Butler, I was in your class in 2015. I'm thinking about going to med school. I'm thinking about going to get an MBA. I'm applying for a job. Here is my picture. I hope you remember me. Can you write me a letter? My hypothesis, they don't want to see me. My hypothesis is they want the letter. My hypothesis is that, hey, I want a paycheck, but I'm not interested in seeing my managers. All right. Put me on a boat, let me do my job, let me deliver the revenue, and leave me alone. Are we coming to that now?
I believe that is a mixed bag. I think we have people
Well, me
who
too.
very much feel that way. And then we've got young people that we're seeing come out of the university and enter AWT or just the market here in general that I meet on in the community that say, I don't want to be work from home anymore. I want to understand how to interact with people. I want to understand how to talk to my manager. How do I move up in my career? And so I think we're going to have two sides of that coin. Like I want to understand the business. I want them to see me. I think we're going to have two very distinct buckets that feel very passionate about both ends of those spectrums. And then I think we're going to have some people that kind of land in the middle. But it was amazing to watch the shift in Austin Women in Technology, like when COVID first happened and everybody was remote and it's like, yay, we're all remote. We can do whatever. And now they're like, oh my gosh, how do I interact with my colleague? How do I talk to my boss? Like we try to go to a lot of networking events that are university driven because we want to encourage young people to feel comfortable talking to a C-suite person, a VP person, somebody at their manager level so they know how to interact. I'm really passionate about the people side, and I think that's going to continue to be really
glad that you are, because I can tell you this, my last 10 years at UT and also at my club, kids walk across the campus and they're interacting with their telephone.
Yep.
There's no how you doing. Their head is down. They don't know who they are. It's like when I went to Northwestern and it was snowy and cold, you didn't meet people because everybody had a big coat on and you know what their face looked like, right? You didn't meet them to the spring. But right now, and it's going on today, there is absolutely zero interaction in the union. People are sitting, interacting with their cell phones. They walk across campus, falling down and getting hit by cars with their cell phones. Am I right or wrong? So my question is this, and I think it's very interesting for managerial science or for the relationship between what we do in business, which I study, and going forward. Can we have a business culture, and culture just the expectations, where everybody's into themselves, right, rather than interacting in the larger way that we expect them to do? I mean, can you have a company that looks at their cell phones all the time, have no meetings in the office, but deliver a great product and a lot lot of revenue. By the way, we had an MBA student who did that, and he said, I won't call the company out. He said, I don't care where you are, go vacation, go on your ships, just deliver the revenue.
Yeah, I mean, I think that exists. I think that exists today. And I think it's culturally driven, kind of like what you said, right? Is that and are you delivering a product and a service that lends itself to function like that? Like for us, we sell physical furniture that we want to put into a space for somebody. That is challenging to do without interacting with at least one human being, your customer. And so I think that's going to depend on what you're doing and what type of company you have. But yeah, I think there are companies that have great success in being very close to what you're describing.
Yeah, I think so. Well, I have some other questions, but I will turn it over to my distinguished colleague who's outside of Texas.
This is very interesting. We have seen a huge cultural change, which began quite correctly, not with COVID, but long before that, with the cell phone. I was in Hong Kong about 30 years ago and looked around at a table in this restaurant, the big round table with 7 people sitting at it. They were all on cell phones, not talking to each other. And I had this ghastly vision of the future, and that's how it is. We have gone through an enormous change, but societies have gone through changes before, which have changed, which have left them different. I mean, I grew up in a world where women largely didn't work. We've doubled the talent to the workplace by bringing women into it, and it's been hugely beneficial for the country. But the country survived, as did the world before that Enlightenment arrived. So we're going through a new period. Working at home is not for me. I do it of necessity. I grew up in newsrooms. I like to have a lot of people around. I like to be able to josh and talk and meander about and exchange information. I do wonder for the young people how they meet each other. What's the dating scene like? Is it all done on cell phones? I rather sort of like to see my date personally. It's a new world. I think that what we have to learn is people who are productive and people who are not productive working at home. My guess, there's no science behind it at all, so it should appeal to Johnny. My guess is that about 60% of people working at home are less productive, and 40% of them are more so. I spent some time around NASA Goddard Space Center in Maryland. And there you have the really dedicated scientists who are more productive at home. They don't need the clutter. They work at home, and some of them are industrious people. Others, I suspect, less so. I mean, we've all been down the supermarket and heard somebody say, I'm in my home office. No, you're not. You're in the supermarket. But we've got to just see. I wanted to ask you, how important is appearances to business nowadays? And this tends to be another cultural force. At one time, my wife and I spent a good deal of time in Finland reporting. And one of the things we noticed was, even in a $3 billion company, how modest the chief executive's office was. Whereas I've been to some pretty grandiose places actually in Houston with oil companies and elsewhere, seen some just lavish, with carpets this thick and all these poor women sitting in little boxes outside the doors with the executives, who may also be women. It doesn't follow. It's not a totally sexist thing. Outside the doors, and everybody talking politely while they're doing $1 million cutthroat deal or $1 billion cutthroat deals. How important is it? Banks used to be very ornate places. Now most old banks are restaurants, and banks are holes in the wall. How important is appearance? Would you say to a medium-sized company, maybe about to go public, get yourself a nice face, some pretty furniture, a decent architect, and an interior designer? You would say that's passé. you get yourself a computer set?
For those who value the physical space, I think some of the shift has been making that work well for the employees and creating it as a space where they want to come for collaboration, heads down work, whatever that looks like. But I feel like for us at least, it's shifted more to creating beautiful, functional spaces and often like pockets of spaces to collaborate, to communicate, to have that dialogue, and then quiet spaces to have that heads down work where you're not distracted. It's shifted a lot from the like perimeter private offices, and then you've got all the workstations, and that's like all you have essentially, aside from your kitchen, maybe. It's a big shift to being a lot more geared towards hospitality, residential. Those have really blended into the space to make it feel like it's somewhere that you'd be comfortable at, just like sitting at your house in your living room, right? So we've seen a shift to that style, especially in like corporate and even medical, making it feel comfortable and not sterile and welcoming and inviting. When it comes to the space.
Interior design, do you try to design in workspaces to somehow blend computer keyboards in with nice furnishings, or on an executive desk? Do you think about how to really accommodate the modern world into the traditional world, into the furnished world of wood and polish, and suddenly you've got these quite ugly computer terminals?
Yeah. Most people have like laptops and we can conceal those, very much making the technology kind of blend in with the aesthetic of the space. Furniture and providing those things has come an extremely long way in making that blended and beautiful. And things like integrating technology into like phone booths. And it's just, there are some really magical, amazing things that we can do with things being like embedded in surfaces on that, like touch screen computers can be like embedded in desks, and they're really beautiful. So blending the technology and the space is very much here and can achieve really, really beautiful results. So it doesn't look clunky with like a tower just hanging out on the floor on the desk. It's definitely changed a lot.
Emily, a final question from me. Where is your growth area? Where are you seeing the most excitement? Where are you seeing the largest number of people availing themselves of your services?
I see Andres has his hand up. Are you
No,
interjecting?
go.
You were
Yeah,
just,
we were wondering why you were throwing your hands up. We thought you
yeah, I mean, you're my client.
canceled the program, that you couldn't take any more of us.
Oh my gosh, that's funny. We're for SKG, we're pretty diversified in our portfolio. So we've got a lot of healthcare, which I think is going to continue to grow, especially as Central Texas. So we can service almost all of the state except for Dallas, Houston, and El Paso. And so we've got a big bucket. And so I think higher education, lower education, and the healthcare segments, we're seeing a lot of movement. And then, the other ones, it's to be seen with the changes and the volatility and what's happening with production and companies kind of being like, whoa, need to assess and see what happens. There's been some pauses in, corporate and in that segment. But I think we're pretty well diversified otherwise, because we've got to diversify because things wax and wane all the time. But healthcare and education is good.
I'm glad you brought up healthcare, because gradually I think healthcare facilities are getting less frightening, more user-friendly, less ugly pictures of your insides on the wall, or dentists with these dreadful pictures of teeth, which are revolting anyway, except when they're in your mouth and functioning correctly. Winston Churchill said, "We shape buildings, then they shape us." Do you think that still applies?
That's an interesting statement.
Yeah.
We shape buildings and then they shape us.
That's the work you're in.
It is. You know, yeah. People have to, yes, I think
Still
that's
applies.
Yeah, let me ground you in some history and then ask you a question about your women's stuff. Back in the day, before time was time, when everybody was doing this great experiment called Austin, there was a woman by the name of Rania Kosmeski who wrote a book entitled Women in Business Succeeding as a Manager, Professional, or Entrepreneur. Have you heard of that book before?
I have not, but I'll check it out.
Well, this is what started the woman's ideas around business enterprise in the state of Texas. Well, I want you to take a look at that book. Then I want you to raise money in her name, and we need to glorify her. And I think it was Women in Business Succeeding as a manager, professional, entrepreneur. And then I have another student whom I consider a daughter by the name of Vanderbilt. Do you know Vanderbilt? Do you know her?
Uh-uh.
Sure you do.
Ingrid?
She has a company called A Billion Women. Ingrid
Okay.
Vanderbilt. Do you know
Yes.
Ingrid?
Yes. Yes.
All right. So my question is this, and then you have the president of the United States who's really interested in equity, which I consider more female than anything else. When he says DEI, I consider that more related to females than anything else. I don't think it relates to race. I think it relates to the females and types of genders and the issue. How do you see in Rhonda's tradition, Rhonda Kosmeski's tradition, of what you do and what you and Ingrid Vanderbilt does, and her organization is empowering 1 billion women, right? How do you see where you are now with all of the things that's happened in entrepreneurship? I know the contributions have been great, but mostly from the immigrant women entrepreneurs, I might say. So how do you see your goal there and Ingrid's Vanderbilt's goals of empowering 1 billion women and contributing to where we are now economically in the future? Because I see that you do a lot of that.
Yeah. So, like, how do I see that moving forward?
Yes. Or standing still.
I hope it's not standing still.
I always tell my students I never saw a presentation that didn't have a hockey stick. It all went straight up for the enterprise. It never went straight.
Gosh, I just actually spoke about this a couple weeks ago in Vegas at a CIO conference of all the things. And for us, for Austin Women in Technology, and for me as a human, like, none of this should slow down anything to keep equity like a focus. And for us at AWT, like, we put out a newsletter from our president a few months ago that, like, we're still here to support you, to support women continue to be leaders in business or whatever that looks like, start their own venture. And I think some people right now feel very unseen and scared of what that's going to look like in the future. And I'm more empowered than ever to make equity even more of a thing than it is for me right now. So I think that we've got companies that are going to continue to rally around that and not shy away from kind of the DEI stuff, even though that's a little bit of like a dirty acronym right now. And just pivot their policies to keep that in their core values. There are some great examples of that happening. Like Delta doubled down on investing in DEI last year. Salesforce just like retooled some of their wording and information, but it's still core to who they are as a company to promote diversity and equity and innovation for their company. And I think we're going to keep powering forward like we always have. So
I think it's interesting. I think when I have discussions, and I've had lots of debates in the last, 2 or 3 years, the argument is that one can guarantee opportunity, but nobody can guarantee equity, because the distribution is equity is going to be based on the agency that the entrepreneur brings. So you're going to have so much variation between. So you can guarantee opportunity,
sure.
you can guarantee that, but guaranteeing equity is just impossible to do, because there's so much variation in entrepreneurs in what they do. And
Yeah.
I use myself, sold companies for millions of dollars, and I have another one that just went through FDA. And I think what brought that was the opportunity. And I think people talk about equity, but I can guarantee the opportunity to play basketball, for example, or golf. But I'm not going to be the golfer that Ben Crenshaw was by winning the Masters twice, right? But I did have the
Right.
opportunity. Yeah. Interesting
Yeah,
stuff.
I think for me it's like equitable opportunity for all is really what
Yeah, I
I'm
think
passionate
that's what it
about.
is. Yeah, I think it's opportunity. And then
Yeah.
some people with, some people don't know what to do with the opportunity. Some people will stumble into the opportunity. And as you know, one of the things that you have done and we have done in Austin, and we had no wealth here 40 years ago. Now it's one of the wealthiest cities based on entrepreneurship and that kind of stuff. But it was never around, it was around equal opportunity rather than the idea of just equity. It's just here's
Yeah.
your opportunity. And it was for immigrants, it's for everybody. And I think that's what makes America great is the opportunity to do great things. And I think the equity brings arguments, but nobody argues over the opportunity. And there was a
Yeah.
Butler, I don't owe you anything. You can't be equal with me. But if you have the opportunity, I said, well, I'm so much better looking than you are. I don't know why I can't be more equal than you are. So I just think that it brings about, I've seen that it brings about lots of arguments. But if you concentrate on opportunity, it's fabulous.
Love it.
So Emily, tell us real quick, what's going on in the next 6 months with you guys? Any events or activities or conferences or any new products or services? Anything you want to share?
Well, if anybody's looking for furniture, technology, architectural solutions for their space, no matter your budget or aesthetic, we can definitely help you or point you in the right direction. So give me a shout. As far as events, oh my gosh, there's so much happening, y'all. There are a couple of conferences. There's some cloud computing and Kubernetes stuff happening next month. So Kubernetes Community Days and Civo Navigate. So Civo is a cloud computing company. They're putting on an Austin conference. Those are like back to back. We have an AWT event every month. And then I'm also on the events committee for the Austin AI Alliance, which is relatively new. And we've got our meeting tonight, actually. So there's a public meeting that happens the third Wednesday of every month. So the Austin is like cooking. And I'm excited for April and May because there's a lot happening. So even if you're not in technology, you're an ally of a woman in technology, you want to get into technology, you do sales, marketing, whatever for tech, come join AWT. We really want to provide community and support for you.
Okay. Llewellyn?
The honesty of what's going to happen in the national economy and what actions the administration is going to take, creative or destructive. We're looking for some kind of settlement. It's not looking too hopeful either in Crimea. We're looking for some settlement in the Middle East, and we're looking for some resolution of the correct amount, if any amount is correct, of tariffs. It certainly isn't as high as the president has suggested. We need smoothness. We need to reestablish our old alliances. There's no point in forgetting your own, and they're going to bear on all of us. These are not things that just happen in the Middle East, and we're looking for some resolution. I'm getting some playback. I don't know why. Can you hear that? I'm getting an echo.
Go.
Okay. We're all going to be affected by these international and national events. My own year is about the same as most. I'll make my television programs. I'll try to earn a living, which is getting harder in my line of work. Journalists are not being paid anymore. I'm getting some awards. I think I've reached that point in life where instead of paying me, they think it's cheaper to give you an award. I expect to get one from Andres any day now. And I'm going to London to make a speech next month, I suppose, which will be quite nice. I haven't been back in London for quite a long time. But the immediate future is outside of our hands. It's in vast national decisions and international events that we cannot control. The big domestic thing will be, will we have enough electricity? Will the supply chain be sufficiently solid that we have everything we need to run our businesses? We are not domestically self-sufficient in very much at all. The thing I mentioned earlier, 30% of scheduled landings from China will not land. That's going to impact us. I look at electricity a lot, and I see huge threats ahead in the supply chain and heavy electrical equipment, everything from transformers to generators, even simple things like a bucket truck. It takes 3 years of advance ordering. My friends in the utility industry tell me that if you haven't ordered new gas turbines, a huge way ahead, if you haven't ordered ahead, you're out of luck. We also have the problem of the reliability of Chinese equipment. How spy-ridden is it with sensors, etc.? And the great joker, the unknown one for electric supply this coming year, is the weather. It looks as though we could have down the center of the country, in the area served by the Mid-Atlantic Independent Supply Association, MISO organization rather, MISO, we could have severe disturbances in electric supply, blackouts, possibly in Texas and possibly in California. So there's a lot of uncertainty ahead, and I think it's very foolish to think that you can avoid it, or that it doesn't apply to you, or that you can put a bridge or a barricade around Austin or around Texas or around the US. We are all in the globe, and we are all affected by global events and by decisions made, good ones and bad ones, in Washington. Here endeth the lesson for today.
Well, let me comment on my distinguished colleagues. I agree with some of what you said. Andreas, you're freezing up, Andreas.
Got some computer problems.
Yeah. Well, let me just say this.
Yes,
it's getting right.
I am.
I think there's agency. I think that people will find a way to defeat the system, whether it's turning the entire Soviet Union into a mass black market, whether it's having Miami go from a city of nothing to a great city because of immigration from Cuba, when everybody was saying that we had to save Miami, and what saved Miami was the entrepreneurs who were expelled from Cuba. Or whether it's not is changing in how we changed Austin. But we have to have the primacy of a Boston, because the country's really run from Maine on the East Coast, from the universities and the ideas in Washington, and other states have really not, gotten into that strong network of schooling. I mean, the Ivy Leagues, what happens on Wall Street and what happens in Washington, D.C. On the other hand, there's something called Y'all Street that's happening in Fort Worth, where they're trying to move the center of finance from Wall Street to Y'all Street. So I have an idea that agency, whether it's creating new forms of doing things in the States, whether it's immigration. I mean, I've looked at and I've asked one basic question, sociological question. How many people are moving from America? How many people are trying to move to Asia? How many people are trying to move to Europe, unless they have a summer home in some of the beautiful countries like Germany and Scandinavia, some of the beautiful countries in the world. So I agree with Llewellyn that our decisions are made in Washington, but I also think that Americans have an agency. That agency created the Civil War. That agency created the gap between the People's Republic of California and the state of Texas. That agency continues to allow the Northeast to literally run the country. What I'm saying is, who becomes presidents, who becomes senators, where the ideas come from, the New York Times, the Boston Globe, the Washington Post, that has not moved away. That is the soul of America. It is not Texas. It is not California. The soul of America goes from Maine down through New York, down through Pennsylvania, and most of the wealth is the old money there. So I do believe that going in the future, it will be different. But I think that agency, like it always has been, will make America different. And the question, as Llewellyn said, is how do you make a living? And I think when we look at our guest here, Emily, is that how you make a living will be completely different than how I made a living, or how my parents made a living, or how my grandkids are going to make a living. But the structure of America, the Constitution, Locke, Rousseau, Western civilization has gave the freedom from mercantilism. America has already knocked two countries down, Germany, right, that tried to take away those freedoms in World War II. Then we fought the Japanese that was in there. And America didn't say to Germany, we're going to take your country over. No, it said, here's Volkswagen back. Because America believes that all people love freedom, but there are only bad governments. So Lincoln would say, there's nothing wrong with white Southerners. It's the government that's important. There's nothing wrong with Germans. It's Hitler that was the problem. There's nothing wrong with the people. It is bad governments. And I think, unlike Rome, which conquered people, America brought to the table, we're going to destroy Tokyo, we're going to destroy Berlin, but we're going to help you build it back in the image of what we call freedom. And I think if we go back to Rome, where they would take you over, right, rape, kill, and etc., and it's a whole different country. So I think that the American ideas of Locke, Rousseau, the Western ideas of Locke and Rousseau that gave oneness into the Constitution that said, hey, anybody can come here, any kind of trash can come here and become respectable. It's hard to do that in England. It's hard to do that in Tokyo. It's hard to do that in China. But in America, we accept trash as long as you accept our way of living, adopt our ideas. So I bet on America, but I do believe that it's going to be a very, very different kind of country. Because remember this, and I'll shut up. This stuff about everybody being created equal, I know that I'm better than everybody. Let me just put that hat on. I'm better than everybody. I'm better looking. I play guitar. I play piano. I sing. I have a PhD. I've sold companies billions of dollars. Now, who the hell is equal to me? Nobody. But America tells me, for some reason, Locke and Rousseau tells me that the culture is everybody equal, but it's not really true.
You're so eloquent.
Now, let me put on my other hat. Let me put on my Llewellyn hat. I believe that everybody's equal. I'm an American. I believe that everybody. No other country. Rome didn't have it, right? Germany tried to take it away. Japan tried to take it away. And America has never said, we're going to do like Rome. We didn't take over Tokyo. We gave Toyota back to Tokyo, and they made all of the planes, right? We gave Volkswagen back to the Germans, right? We didn't want that. We didn't say we're going to occupy forever. But remember, Rome didn't do that. So the lessons of America are the ideas. This is why it's important to understand philosophy. It's important to understand the Constitution, separation of powers. You got to understand that the president has two things that he or she can do: be commander-in-chief and support the Supreme Court. All of the powers go to the Congress. When the Congress says we're going to fund this, then it's funded and the president cannot take it away. So we got to be aware about the relationship between law, another great Western thing that the Western nations gave us, North Atlantic nations gave us, that nobody else gave the world. Other than that, I'm through. Now Llewellyn understands who's superior.
Oh God. You're too much.
Johnny,
I want to hear your
when
comeback from that.
Johnny, when we get off the air, do take your medicine.
My medicine is the Constitution.
Well, tell your president to obey the Supreme Court and
That was my
facilitate the
point.
return of this prisoner.
Well, the point is that all of the power in the Constitution is in the Congress. It's not in the presidency.
I beg to differ. We have made the president.
And we have.
All
We
equal
can give
and
dictation. They have given all kind of, commands and et cetera. But the Congress has to stand up. And I'm just saying, we're not going to lose that. We might lose it for a little while, but we'll get back to it.
Emily,
I don't have your optimism. I think that it's all very fragile and it takes a lot of binding up and a lot of awareness by every citizen to maintain the freedom that we have enjoyed for so long.
here,
I gotta
here.
go. Thank you. Lovely to see you, Emily. I have to go up and bind up some of the wounds that Johnny has opened up in the work.
Emily, it's a pleasure to have you.
Thank
It's
you.
a joy. It's wonderful to have you, Emily. Do not hesitate to take such corrective and educative actions as you may vis-a-vis Johnny, but it doesn't really help.
Llewellyn, you better be glad that you're African American, or I would really be hard on you.
I think I may be deported back to Africa quite soon.
Emily, he was born in Africa, so he's more African American than I am.
And I may end up back in Zimbabwe if your government has its way. Cheers. Thank you.
Well,
Wonderful to be with
Love you,
Emily. I
Llewellyn.
really
Take
do
care.
have
Johnny,
to
take
go.
us away.
Okay.
Bye, Johnny.
I will.
Cheers.
I wish a Coke was still. I wish a buck was still silver. Now that was back when the country was strong. Back before Nixon, before the Vietnam War came along. Before the Beatles and yesterday. The man could still work and still would. It's the best of the good times behind us now. Are the good times really over for good?
Woo!
I
Excellent.
like
Thank you,
Mr.
Emily.
Llewellyn, as you can see. We got a thing going on. Remember, it's all for the public. We all love each other.
Oh, I don't doubt that. Oh my gosh.
Okay. And look on the look up our Miss Kosmeski. Miss Kosmeski, we haven't honored her. Miss Kosmeski came and said, I'm gonna write the first book on women. Look up the book. It's by Ronya, Ronya Kosmeski. Let me do it while Andre must don't have somewhere to run to. He loses running away here.
I do.
Business, succeeding as a manager,
Yep,
professional,
that's
or
it.
entrepreneur.
That book has been completely forgotten, but that's where your organization came from. And we did the Software Council, which is now called the Technology Council. Now, I would say this, highways are technologies, buildings are technologies. I mean, any way of improvement, innovation is all technologies. So if you're going to be in business today, you better be in technology. So
Yeah, everything is technology these days. Like it's
yeah, but so was the telephone. It was technology. Typewriter was technology, right? So we got. I think we got to use it in a broader way. But good seeing you again, and I hope you enjoyed Llewellyn. I think I got him today. He usually has a good comeback. He just wants to leave today.
He was quiet. He was quiet. Yeah.
Quiet. Okay. All righty.
Bye,
Take care.
guys.
Bye.
thank y'all. Thank you, Andres.
Thank
Bye.
you.